Why do you keep reptiles? What's up, YouTube? Today's video is actually just kind of an uplifting video of sorts. So nothing negative in this video at all. Most of my videos are pretty uplifting. Every once in a while I'll throw in like a little sucker punch for everybody and get a little down and dirty and get a little negative. But usually I'm pretty chill, pretty uplifted. So today's video, we're actually going to talk about why I have reptiles, why I breed reptiles, and why I love reptiles and collect them myself. So first things first, I'll give you the background. I've said this before. YouTube, while I have you right here, don't forget to smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for the YouTube algorithm. I started working when I was 16 at a pet store. Literally, my first year there, I saw so many things wrong with the pet business, the pet industry, and nothing against the pet store. It's just how things are. It's the only way pet stores can exist. But the only problem with that is that most of the time you're getting animals from a wholesaler. So this is probably a mill of sorts. So if you're getting reptiles, you're getting them from a reptile mill. So that's kind of how it goes. So the problem with that is they're either bad genetics, bad lineage, or you just don't know the genetics at all. So the problem with that is if you're planning on buying a reptile, even if it's not for breeding purposes, it's always good to know exactly what you get. So if you're buying a ball python, you want to know exactly what's inside of that ball python, because that's just how things go. Because if you have a ball python and you for some reason have issues with it, there are morphs out there that have certain issues that are linked to the specific morph. So with that said, if you don't know what it is you're getting, let's just say they sell you a fancy ball python, you don't know what the heck a fancy ball python is if you can't really tell just by looking at it. And most people that are buying pet store animals usually don't understand what it is they're buying. They might know that it's a ball python, but they might not know it's a spider. Or they might not know that it's champagne, or they might not know that it's cinnamon and possibly has a kink. They don't know all that. So with that said, that's why it's important for people to keep getting their animals from breeders. I'm not saying don't support your local pet stores. I'm just saying do your due diligence with that pet store, because there are pet stores out there that are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing and making sure that everything they sell is top-notch quality. And then there's pet stores out there just selling whatever they can get their hands on. And those are the ones I don't support. So I will be making a video in the future where I go to different pet stores in my areas, like PetSmarts, Petco's, Feeder Supplies, and every other local pet store around the area. And I kind of just show you what it is that they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. And maybe, I don't know if they'll allow me to do it, but maybe I'll even talk to some of the employees and kind of ask them questions, general knowledge questions, not like going into morphs and specifics for breeding or anything like that, and seeing if they can answer those questions to see if they actually are getting trained to actually sell these animals. Because that's one thing. If you don't know what you're selling, how can you sell it, right? So that's something that I'll be doing in the future. But in this video, I want to go into the facts of why I breed, why I keep reptiles, and why I love them. So first things first, I already gave you the intro. I already told you why I even have reptiles in the first place. It's because I worked at a pet store. The pet store, there were people that would come in and say, I'm surrendering this animal. My kid doesn't want this animal anymore. And the pet store I worked at, we did not resell those animals. Those were considered rescues. We didn't resell them. The only way we could get rid of them again is by giving them away to the next person. So I took my first 2 bearded dragons in just like that. This was 17 maybe at the time when I got my 2 bearded dragons. So I didn't know about, you know what I'm saying? So there is a lot that I had to learn in the several years up into about 20, what is it? Oh, 20, I don't even know when I started breeding. Oh my gosh. I would say it was like 2014 or something like that when I bred my first bearded dragon babies. So, God, I don't know. It's been over the last 10 years, I would say I've produced maybe 2,000 babies. I don't know. And that doesn't sound like a lot because there's people out there producing that in a year. But for me, 2,010 years is quite a bit. So maybe 1,500 to 2,000. I'm not really sure on that. So with that said, I had to learn everything that I needed to learn to even start breeding those reptiles. And same thing with ball pythons. I've only been breeding ball pythons. This is my second year breeding ball pythons. But I did a whole year of research before I even got into breeding ball pythons. Now, I will give you this. I didn't have to do a crap ton of research because I had a lot of general awareness for breeding when it came to the bearded dragon. So I kind of just took that over to the ball python side. So, there is the reason why I even have reptiles is because they were given away to me. Why do I keep reptiles? I have noticed that there is a difference between having furry animals and having reptiles. I have 3 dogs. I've had cats in the past. It's not the same. The dogs, you can show them unconditional love. They'll always love you forever, no problem. With a reptile, you have to, I don't understand, it's hard to explain, but you kind of have to gain its trust. Even though they're raised in captivity, most likely you're not going to get a wild caught animal, but even though they're raised in captivity, you still have to gain their trust. I've never had to gain my dog's trust. From the time that I grabbed them and picked them up from whoever is selling them, to the time that I have them now, I've never had to gain their trust. As soon as I got them, they were just like, hey, best friends forever. And that's kind of how it went. So with reptiles, it's not like that. Reptiles, you gotta, it's slow and steady. You gotta actually learn the reptile. Obviously, you have to do it with animals like dogs and cats and stuff like that too, but it goes a lot deeper with the reptiles, in my opinion. Obviously, everybody might have their own opinion. So that's why I like to keep reptiles, is because there is a different level of keeping when it comes to reptiles than there is with dogs, cats, so on and so forth. So that's just the reason I keep reptiles. The reason I love reptiles, oh, that goes a lot further than that. I will say this. I didn't even know reptiles existed as pets before I got my first reptile. Oh, what's up there, YouTube? So I'm actually building an enclosure here, but not just any enclosure. This enclosure is one that I'm filming for my members on YouTube and Patreon. So if you want to learn how to make one of these, join my membership on YouTube or Patreon. Both memberships start at $5. So for $5, you get the videos. I've already made a rack build. I'll be making more builds as far as like double tier or 3-tier enclosures out of one structure. I'll also be making videos on snake racks and stuff like that. So these are all going to be DIY videos to save you money. For $5, you get all that. So I don't see why you wouldn't join. So this also may help you if you want to start your own business, maybe some chump change or something like that to make a little bit of extra cash on the weekends or something like that. Now, I'm not going to say this is going to be easy. This is not for the faint of heart. This is a lot of work. Obviously, I'm probably sweating. You might be able to see it. So if you want to join and learn how to make one of these, don't hesitate, because the videos will just keep coming and you don't want to miss them. So this is a PVC 4x2x2 enclosure. And as you can see, it's not finished yet, but it's in the process and it's almost done. So check back on the memberships and you'll be able to see how I made this enclosure. Let you get back to the video now. And after that, I could never go back to not having reptiles. So that's why I love reptiles. There's something about having them that's not just getting to know them and learning all the research and all that. It's about actually having it. That you just, I'm sure there's people out there that had reptiles in the past and now they don't. Or maybe they had reptiles in the past, had a period where they didn't, and now they do. Those people understand what I'm talking about. When you don't have those reptiles, you feel like there's a void in your heart, and you're just like, how do I fill this void? And that's just how it goes. So I have, I don't know, hundreds of reptiles for some reason. So I do have a lot of reptiles, and I have a little bit of everything. Snakes, lizards. I have 2 Ackie monitors. I don't show them enough, and it's because they kind of keep to themselves, and they're still small, so I don't like getting them out of the enclosure, and you know, they'll run away, and I don't really want that because they're pretty fast. Those Ackie monitors are pretty fast. And then I have a tortoise, and Shelly the tortoise, she is as lazy as can get. So let's just go with that. So it's hard to even just say, oh, I have all these animals, because there's different levels to keeping all these animals too. Like ball pythons to bearded dragons, completely different care level. Ackie monitors to bearded dragons, completely different care level. Tortoises to ball pythons, completely different care level. I mean, it goes beyond just saying I have a reptile. So that's the reason why I love my reptiles, why I have so many different types of reptiles. I know it's only 4 different types of species, but I mean, just bearded dragons alone, I have 20 that are my own, plus another 100 and something babies that I produced this year. I still have about 50, 60 left. And then ball pythons, I have about 80 something that are my own, and then about 60 babies that are 50 something babies that I produced this year. I think it was like 46 or something like that. The last video I made saying how many I had, and then I have like 6 more due to hatch. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, so at least 46 baby ball pythons that I've produced this year. So it goes a lot further into just saying I have a reptile. There's a complexity to having each species of reptile. And then there's also all the different morphs. It's like a freaking rainbow in here. It's like you look in any individual enclosure, you'll see a different animal. I don't have any 2 animals that look exactly the same. So it's literally like a rainbow in here. It's unreal. It looks amazing. And it's just really hard to explain. But like I said, the people that have had a pause with no reptiles know what I'm talking about. In 2018, I actually had a 2-year hiatus where I didn't breed or keep reptiles whatsoever. Those 2 years were pretty normal, except for the fact that the entire time I was like, I need to get a bearded dragon, I need to get a bearded dragon, I need to get a bearded dragon. And the reason I got rid of all my bearded dragons is because I had a kid. I had to move. I had to do all this crap that involved me not being able to take all of my reptiles everywhere I needed to go. And at the time, I probably had 16, 18 breeders of my own. So I usually try to stay around, 16 to 20 breeders, just because if I go any higher than that, it's harder for me to handle. But that's how it's always been for me. I've always had at least 16 or 18 bearded dragons that I was breeding or keeping for my own, and every single one of them always looked different. So there was a 2-year part of my life where I was just like, I need to get a bearded dragon, I need to get a bearded dragon. And then I did. And literally, after I got my bearded dragons back, so I would say sometime in 2020, like November 2020, I got my first bearded dragon again. And after that, I probably added a new bearded dragon every month until about, well, I think I bought my last bearded dragon sometime mid last year, or maybe fall of last year. So at least for 2 years, I was buying bearded dragons constantly. And yeah, here we are again. I know, it's a lot of animals. And then, that wasn't even the worst part. At the beginning of 2022, I decided, or no, at the end of 2021, I also decided, so 1 year after getting my first bearded dragons, and probably after having like 15, 16 of them, I decided I was going to get into ball pythons, did my research, bam, got a bunch of ball pythons. And here we are with a building full of, I would say, probably 200 animals. It added up pretty quickly. I think I'm going insane at this point, but I love it. I love it though. So I don't even know where I was going with this video. I was just trying to tell people why I love my reptiles, why I love keeping reptiles, why I love having the reptiles that I have. If you don't have a reptile yet, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be a bearded dragon, it doesn't have to be a ball python, whatever it is that you want, whether it be a blue-tongued skink, a green creek python, which I suggest you don't if it's a beginner. If you are just now getting into reptiles, do not get a GTP. Those things are not fun for beginners. So I've heard horror stories. I've never actually kept one for myself, but other than that, anyone that's experienced can usually do pretty good with those. But green creek pythons, no way, Jose, not for me. But that's just how it goes. Once you got a level of knowledge when it comes to reptiles, you can usually upgrade and get a better reptile. Not saying upgrade like sell the one you have and get a better one later. I'm saying keep the one you have, get a one that requires more experience, and then have both. That's what I did. Obviously, I started with bearded dragons, which is like intermediate. Honestly, there's a lot of people that say bearded dragons are beginner level reptiles. They're really intermediate because you need a big enclosure, you need a lot of food, you need to feed them every day, give them greens every day, give them baths at least twice a week. I mean, it goes beyond a lot of things that you need for other reptiles. So that's just, it's a lot. I would say intermediate for sure. I'm sure if you look out there, somebody will say it's beginner. It's not a beginner. Beginner would be leopard gecko, which doesn't require any lights. You can really, I mean, I've seen people keep leopard geckos in room temp. So, crested geckos, those are really low maintenance as well. Ball pythons are pretty low maintenance as well. So I would suggest that you find yourself a reptile that you can actually handle based off the needs of that reptile. That's just my 2 cents. And I don't have much going on. But if you made it this far into the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything that I put out in the future. As always, peace.
Artlist.io